This lecture will discuss international marketing, specifically how to enter a foreign market. Now, there's other areas of international marketing that are important, but this is probably the most important concept, so I'm going to focus on this. And when you enter a foreign market, you have some choices. You can either, if it's a physical product, you can export it, to ship it, and there's pros and cons to that. And there's licensing, which is another way of entering a foreign market, and licensing could result in franchising, which is a form of licensing, which many of you have been exposed to when you just drive down a major street. And then there's partnerships. Some countries require partnership with companies if you want to enter that market. And then there's direct foreign investment, and we'll be talking about that, which is where you invest and it's the highest form of investment, because you're going to actually start the business in another country and invest there. So we'll be talking about that, and also the risks associated with each one of these and the reward. So if you were ever going to enter a market, you would start with market research. That is critical. Part of the market research is something that you've had in this program. You had courses in culture, and so understanding the culture of the country that you're going to be exporting to, if you will, or investing in, is critical to you. And what I always recommend is that you have an actual person from the country to consult, you can consult with, as opposed to just reading about the culture of a foreign market. That's really important because you can make some serious mistakes if you think you understand a culture and you really don't. Then there's the market entry. So after you've researched, you select the best market entry strategy for you, for your business, for your product or service. And then you have to write a plan. You have to outline how you're going to do it. And this is essentially how you would go into the foreign market. So now, of what I just showed you, I showed you exporting, licensing, joint ventures, direct foreign investment. This chart is important because you've got on the left hand, on the vertical axis over here on the left, you've got profit potential. You've got the highest profit potential and the lowest profit potential. And then across the bottom, you have risk and control. So risk and control, it goes up as you move to the right, but the most is over here. And you have the highest profit potential up here. Therefore, in this chart, direct foreign investment has the highest profit potential and highest control, but it also has the highest profit potential, but it also has the highest risk. So the reason that is because you are going all in to investing in a foreign market. If you open up a facility there, you're going all in. It's the most expensive way to enter a market, but it can also be the highest profit potential. On the other end of the spectrum, we have exportation. So direct exportation is where you just simply ship your product. But it's not that easy. You can't just ship a product to another country. Obviously, you have to have distribution channels established. And when you do that, though, you've got to be either working with a company that can sell your product or service, or you work with agents who know the market, that can, on a commission basis, sell your product or service. So you have to have some form of selling your product once you ship it. Obviously, with the problem with exportation is, well, the good thing is it's less expensive than these other forms of market entry. You're shipping the product. The challenge though is you have absolutely no control about how the product is actually sold. So if you're shipping it to an agent to sell it or you're shipping it to retailers, you can't really dictate how they're merchandising, how they're selling your product if it is a physical product. So you lose some of that. Licensing in joint ventures are in the middle here. So licensing is where you've, as a marketer or as a business, you grant another uh, company or retailer the right to sell your product. They actually are paying you a royalty when they sell your product. Usually you'll see big organizations like the National Football League or the NBA or something like that, or Major League Baseball will in this country, in the U.S., will have licensed products, and you're paying a premium to sell those products because they're the real deal. They're the licensed product. You're going to pay twice as much. One of the downsides is counterfeiting. There are counterfeit products because everyone knows licensed products are expensive. So counterfeit products sometimes are are an alternative for consumers for a much lower price, and uh, and there's some legal issues there that can come into play in counterfeiting. Counterfeiting is not legal in this country, but worldwide might be able to get away with it. And then the other area we haven't talked about is joint ventures. So joint ventures again is higher risk, higher profit potential, um, but and higher control than these other two. But the only problem is that um, sometimes you have to joint venture if you're going to enter a foreign market that requires you do business with a local organization, that you need to share your profits with them. You also need to share secrets with them, and sometimes they can end up being your competitor, which is not necessarily a good thing. So there's risks and rewards to these different forms of entry, and going left to right. Higher risk, higher profit potential, more control here. Exportation, lower risk, lower profit potential, very little control. So that's something to keep in mind there. By the way, even in licensing, if you're going to license your product for a retailer to sell it and they're going to pay you a royalty, if you're like the National Football League, let's just say, you don't have much control over how it's the product's being merchandised. So franchising is a little bit different. With franchising, you can control. That's part of the franchise agreement. You can control how the product is being sold. McDonald's is the biggest franchise in the world. It's the first one actually, and but there's tight controls on how McDonald's produces their fast food, and so licensing can be uh, franchising is a form of a license, and it's a form of licensing because there's royalties being paid. So those are the four market entry. The most common are probably exportation and direct foreign investment. So which strategy should you use, can be used? It really depends on your vision as a business. And then it also depends on how much risk you're willing to accept. And then how much capital is available. Direct foreign investment's expensive when you're going to basically open up shop in another country. So how much capital is available, and then how much control you need or how much you want. And so that's, again, higher control, higher risk, higher reward for direct foreign investment. Now, market. This is a video. If you want to watch this, you can. It's a guy explains this very clearly. He explains these uh, levels of market entry very clearly and with some humor involved too. So if you get a chance to watch this. So again, we're going to just briefly go over what we talked about. Exporting is lower risk, um, but limited reward. So, and then agents, we talked about direct exporting, which would be if you're just shipping it to a retailer you have an agreement with, or you use agents who can sell your product on a commission level in the local markets. And the agents are very easy to find. They're very available if you ever want to go that route. And licensing is where, and this is a NFL licensed product here. The cost to make this is probably $1 or maybe $2. It's some kind of a bracelet. But the fact that it's NFL licensed, if this didn't have an NFL team on it, it would probably cost $5. Because it does, it costs $10. So 5 of that goes back to the NFL. And that's why the problem with some of the problem with licensing is when you do this, you end up inviting competitors in. So you'd want to license if you had a patented product or a trade secret, a valuable brand name like Disney would be another one. You want a real Disney product, you got to pay extra for it because it's licensed, or specific product formulations. And the advantages to licensing is it provides extra profitability with little initial investment because you're just shipping the product to different retailers. And sometimes it circumvents tariffs and quotas, things like that, other barriers. Sometimes you can do that. And it's low cost to implement. So that's one of the things that's good about it. The bad part is that, or the possible negatives to licensing are, you have limited participation. Sometimes, the retailer, you can't control how they're selling your product if it's a retail product, and there's lack of control because they can throw your product on the floor and sell it from the floor. You can't control that. And the licensee can become your competitor, which can happen. They can start. What if you were selling your NFL products to a company over in France, through a retailer in France, and they were paying you royalties for those, and then they decided that your product's too expensive and they started selling counterfeit products? Then you'd be in trouble. And special licensing agreement, I want to focus on franchising, which is the most common, probably the most common form of licensed agreement. And you'll find franchising all over. Like I said before, drive down a major boulevard or street, you'll find franchises, anything from 7-Eleven to McDonald's to Shell gasoline or Chevron gasoline to Jersey Mike sandwiches to just I'm drawing a blank here, but anything any chain company you could think of is probably a franchise organization. So you have a parent company, and then they allow partners to invest in their business and with the franchise fee, and then they have the right to sell your product under a watchful eye because they want you to operate the business the way they recommend. And royalties go back to the franchisor. The franchisee runs the business like their own business, and there you have the franchisor-franchisee relationship. These are some of the big names in franchising. So McDonald's, 7-Eleven is number one, which kind of surprises people. Not everyone even knows that they're franchised. So then Subway is another one. Subway, 7-Eleven's a very expensive franchise to get into. It costs, upwards of $1 million to get into it. Subway's much less expensive to get into. McDonald's is also fairly expensive. Then you have some other franchises from Japan and France and other 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 countries here. So franchising is here to stay. It's a viable business model. It's not for everybody, but there is value in selling an established brand. So joint ventures is where businesses can share ownership, and sometimes, like I said before, some countries require that you do business. If you're going to enter their country, you have to partner with an existing business, a local business or local manufacturer or marketer, whoever it is. And then you've got, here's a short video to watch joint ventures. Again, joint ventures can be very beneficial. You're taking the best of two organizations and making a one organization that has the best of both. But it can also there can also be issues where, anytime you have a partner, you have a potential for conflict, and some of that conflict can lead to disbanding of the partnership, and then maybe one company learns from the other company and starts doing what they did. So you basically created a competitor. So there's pros and cons to that, and these are some of them again. It allows sharing of the risks, which is good. It provides a new new environment to operate out of, and you get the best of both organizations, and it may be the only way to enter a market. Some countries have restrictions that you can't just open up a business. You have to partner with another business. And the disadvantages, again, some of this is repetitious, but it requires more investment. Sometimes you share rewards as well as the risks. So you share the rewards too. And it requires a lot of coordination. There's the potential for conflict in any partnership, and the partner can become a competitor. And that's probably the biggest fear of any business going into a joint venture. Then direct foreign investment, lastly, is where a business or it can be a large business like Disney opens up, makes a direct investment into Paris. In this case, it was Euro Disney, and they open up a Disneyland in Paris. And so this is, it's a huge commitment to do that, obviously. And you're not just shipping Paris or France, you're not just shipping them Disney products for licensing. You're actually opening up a big theme park there. And, there's risks there in terms of cultural risks. Disney had some missteps early on when they started Euro Disney. There were some missteps, some cultural missteps, which were a problem. They ironed that out, but it took them a while. And so there's other ways you can, there's pitfalls, there's benefits and rewards, but they pay the taxes there in France, but they keep the profits. So that's because it's a direct foreign investment. High risk, high reward. So when we look at, there's going to be, there's assignments that are going to be due with it, like in all of our micro MBA courses. There's a discussion question which I'd like you to address. And when I look at discussion questions, I'm thinking, I'm asking you to write about a paragraph in answering the discussion question. And then there's going to be an assignment, and the assignment will require you to pay attention to the reading here of what's been covered. That's really important. So there's this presentation, there's some reading I'd like you to do, and just go over some videos I'd like you to watch. And I'd like you to pay attention to as much as you can. If you do, you're going to have an easier time with the assignment. And then there's going to be a quiz. Now the quizzes are short. So anytime you see a quiz from my class, it's going to be 5 questions or so. So I hope that makes sense to you. And I look forward to seeing your work in the classroom.